Our guest this week,
has just arrived,
Max Thrasher.
the bounty hunter.
If that doesn't put fear in your heart, it puts a little bit of fear in mine.
It does. I'm a little bit uneasy, but we should be on good terms.
We're coming from the Paradise Knife and Gun Club in the Bronx, New York.
Brother, you better not screw up my intro again, or I'll have to put the tights back on and put a whooping on you, Mr. Walker.
Oh,
it's
no.
the Paradise Knife and Gun Club in New York. Get it right, brother, or get out.
Welcome, friends, to the Pioneers of the Independent Networks. I'm your host, Ricky Blues. This is your co-host, Tim Walker. And we're sweating it out because our special guest here, Max, the bounty hunter Thrasher. Max, welcome back.
Great to be here.
Friends, if you've joined us in the past, you know that we bring you all the characters, the matches, the feuds, the promotions that populated the Mid-Atlantic independent wrestling scene for the last almost 40 years, Tim. And
That's
in
a
that
long
span
time.
of 40 years, we're talking 5 decades. That's how kind of mathematically works out that way. But we bring it to you each week, ladies and gentlemen, so that you can enjoy the archives, and especially with the guest that we have today, one of the pioneers, true pioneers in the Mid-Atlantic area, our friend Max, the bounty hunter Thrasher. Max, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking with you today.
And here we go, continuing on our story. Along the time that this is 91, 92, that UIW and WIN go by the wayside, MEWF comes along. At that time, you come in, you're there, you're in the scene, but you start to get the big push, and you got a ton of matches, not only with the like the Honky Tonk Man, Nikolai, but then you had a small running feud with Morgus. Talk a little bit about what it was like in the ring. I was in there too, I know, but from your point of view, what it was like in the ring with Morgus.
The kid, and he's probably older than I am, or we were the same age. I call him a kid because he was like that 3-year-old that's just got his feet underneath him and can walk and will walk for days. He'll walk you to unconsciousness. And what I mean by that is the kid never stopped. He was 100 miles an hour, 100% of the time. He didn't care what it was. He took whatever bump. And the thing that people may not have known was he had a touch. He was not stiff.
No.
He was a hell of a worker. I mean, he was a hell of a worker, had a hell of a gimmick too. I would say that if I had to go down the list, the guys that I worked with, the guys that I trained, the guys that were in UIW, WIN, MEWF, MCW, all those, you didn't have to worry about them. And I think that's the major thing that everybody needs to understand. You took care of each other because you knew that was your paycheck. Once again, they weren't putting you in the ring until you were ready to go. It didn't matter how you looked. If you couldn't work, you weren't getting in the ring. So that was that. Morgus ran around like an out-of-control train, but never once were you in peril of your safety. In fact, you had to make sure that you stepped your game up to move as fast as he did, because he was a rhythmic wrestler. If he got caught off his rhythm, things got a little bumpy. So in the process, what I learned with him was, he led the dance, I needed to follow. If I couldn't follow, it screwed up the lead. So that was one of those things that in the business too. It was, that about doing the job or not doing the job. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is when you wrestled Morgus, he ran the match. Whether he called it or didn't call it, he ran the match because of his, of his energy. His energy was through the roof. You had to be there. And you had to make sure that you matched that, or it threw him off and the match was horrific. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to be able to keep up with him. Luckily, he was never difficult to work with. He never said, I won't do that, I won't do it. In fact, there was stuff he wanted to do, I had to say, I ain't doing that. He sacrificed his body. I mean, he was not, his mom, and I got to throw this out there too. Mom, she was a
saint.
Yeah, she was fantastic. I mean, I loved her from the moment I met her. She was, she got her hug every time I saw her at a show. She was awesome. His wife was another sweetheart too. And then the boy. The boy was a spitting image. I don't know if the boy's in the business now, but the boy was a spitting image of his dad. Same haircut, same build, same rock. He had that chiseled out rock face. Yeah, but Morgus was a worker who loved the business. He didn't care about the politic or the business side of it. He loved the wrestling business, the performance side. And so you could have told him, hey, I need you to set yourself on fire and run through this wall. And he'd have been, okay, when? Because that was what he was. And that's not a knock on him. In fact, that's a credit to the guy, because I've never heard anybody come up and say, ooh, I don't want to work with this guy. Because there are guys in the business who are like, and there are matchups too. You put Morgus in with anybody, unless, that person can't work at his pace, would not have been a good match.
And he had terrific matches with Cactus, both as his opponent and as a tag. Terrific matches with you. It was just a neat little dichotomy. It wound up after they put the strap on me at first. I broke my leg. I was out of business. Then they put it on you. And you carried it for that period of time in the MEWF. And that was a big component when I come back seeing, man, look at Max and look at Morgus go. They took it to a different level. And that was really interesting and neat to see.
He was, because you can't hurt him. He beat Lucifer several hundred times for the title, didn't he? Something like that. Six Sims made you see all this Japanese press here. This event is really getting covered by a lot of people.
That's good, and it's about time we... Oh, well, if Morgan's landing on his head, no problem.
All right, Dixie, that's time for me to get out of here.
I'm glad you put your clothes back on, son.
Nice working with you guys.
Yeah, Dad, always a pleasure seeing you. We will see you later.
They have a pizza for you to go in. That is a travesty right there.
It's cool. I'm cool. I'm always cool.
Yeah, but where you didn't bring your fan.
Don't need one.
Well, stepping up to the microphone and helping us call this next match.
Joe Cool.
None other than Joe Uncool. What? Joe Uncool. You call me. You keep saying that.
Wait.
All right, calm
If
down.
you're gonna do that, go on that side.
Okay.
Hey, wait a minute now.
Hey, you know, Tippy, that you and me have always been pretty cool. You know that. But this guy, I don't know about. I don't like him.
Would
You
you
keep
sit
him
down?
away from me.
I don't like him
down
either,
with
but
I'll sit down as a favor to
Sit down with
Tippy.
your Mary Tuck Brown jacket, would you?
you can
Hey.
smack him anytime you want.
Can I?
Anytime.
Well, wait until.
I just work here. I'm not his
I
bodyguard.
came out here
Tell us
to be a
about.
gentleman.
Tell
and
us
that's
about
I'm
what
gonna do.
happened to you in the ring, Joe Cool.
It was a travesty. They waited till Kong left the ring, and then they attacked me. I didn't do anything to them the whole night, and now all
That
of a
was your
sudden,
mistake, Joe. That was your mistake.
I
You should have nailed him in the beginning and taught him a lesson.
you're right. I should have nailed those two midgets.
Yeah,
And that's
but-
what they are. They're midgets.
Let me just say you have great legs.
Is that supposed to be funny?
No, she's making a pass.
No,
at
I've
you.
never been funny in my life.
You're right. He hasn't.
I'm telling you, you keep your wise packed up, and I'm leaving. I don't want to hear another word about what happened. You concentrate on what's going on in the ring.
Yes.
That was the pan.
And this is Max Thrasher versus Morgus the Maniac.
And this
right.
is going to be one hell of a match,
That's
too.
right.
Let me tell you, this is going to be good. Who is Max's manager, though, Joe? I don't know this guy. I've never seen him before.
That's a newcomer to me. I have no idea what his name is. But I'll tell you what, he can't be as good as
Oh,
I.
I like your airbrush, by the way. The jacket, very nice. Very nice.
I saw you do it. It's fantastic. You look mighty dapper tonight.
Thank you.
But you always do.
Hey,
I shouldn't have to
We
say.
tried, Joe. We tried.
Oh, it looks like
Oh,
you're-
Max, you
you're
can't
taking
hurt
it out.
more just by hitting him in the head.
You're right. Any moron would know that. You could have hit with a ton of bricks on his head and he wouldn't feel it. That man has to have the hardest head in pro wrestling.
Oh,
No
he
doubt
does.
about it.
He absolutely does. Yes, those are my assistants, my able assistants for the evening.
Who was that guy that teamed up with Quinn? No comment, no technique.
Tyler Martin.
Tyler Martin.
Yeah. New sensation.
If I ever get my hands on them, they ain't going to be so sensation.
Well, if I may suggest, why don't you have Mr. Whipwreck, my good buddy pal Dennis Whipwreck, the promoter of the MEWF, God and everything else, give you a match. Colossal Kong and...
No, we don't need anybody else. That's all I need is Kong. If I have to
All right,
depend on
do a
somebody,
handicap match.
A handicap match.
Do a handicap match.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 people. Kong's going to take care of them. You know, next weekend at Catonsville and Senior High, we're going to fight that old dinosaur, Nikolai Volkov. And you know what's going to happen to him. He's going down like the rest of them.
He probably will.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, Max with his martial arts
is
grappling
going.
throat.
Max is going. You can't stop him when he's on a roll like this. Stay on him, Max. That's it, Max.
Now, I'll tell you what, Chad Austin was just up here and he called.
He's another good friend of mine. I like that man.
Well, he's a good boy, but I'll tell you what, he referred to Max as being a washed-up has-been, and Max looks just as tough as he ever was, maybe even a little tougher.
I agree with you, but in a sense, I happen to agree with Chad. You want to know why? Because he's a friend of mine. That's why. I mean, he has seen his better days. That was nice. That was real
Flying
nice.
shoulder, but Max, you got to hook the leg.
Well, I think they wanted a faster count.
You might want it, but with Jeff Capel in there, you're lucky to get to 3 to begin with, so.
You're right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you can't hurt him.
Max,
You cannot hurt that.
it doesn't work,
No,
Max.
Max.
Do it again, Max.
Oh, man. How many
Yeah,
times
yeah.
would he do it before he learns his lesson, Dickie? That's what I'm asking you.
Oh,
He's taking over.
a headbutt.
I kind of like this Morgan.
Oh.
I kind of like this Morgan. But
I've managed Morgus before, and I tell you what, with the right handling, that man would be champion for years.
I agree with you, but he has to do one thing. He has to get rid of these fans. He doesn't need the fans behind him
I
to be a successful winner. That's it.
wholeheartedly agree.
What's the story with this guy? What?
Oh,
Uh-oh, watch,
he's
watch,
gonna
watch.
roll him up.
Oh, my.
Please.
Oh, my. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a bit of a shocker to me.
I would almost have to call that an upset. Man. Hey, I guess that just goes to show Chad was right. He's a washed-up has-been. Man,
That was a bit of a surprise for me.
and he's their manager. Max's manager left him.
Max is a new manager.
You're right. Maybe Joe Cool can go talk to Max.
Maybe. I think
Or
he's
maybe Dixie Davis. What do you think?
I'm still under suspension.
They haven't fixed that yet?
I thought that little feud brought out a lot in both of you. I really do.
I
Such
agree
a
with that.
character too. I mean, just a great character. It seemed to fit him like a glove. And speaking about being full of energy, remember the night he ran through the glass door
In Odenton.
down at the fire hall?
He
He was
sure
just
did.
so full of energy. He's just running as hard as he could, and didn't notice there's a glass door right in
And
front of
ran
him.
right through it.
And ran right through it, and nary a cut.
And the best part about Buddy, not to cut you off, Max, what a terrific, nice, easy person.
And to tell you, we were sitting one time, it was Ed Zahn, myself, and I think it was the Gambos. They were worried about Morgus. They were worried he was just he would be a bull in a china shop just running through stuff. We're like, no, you got to have the cat there, man. You got to have him. If you don't have Morgus, number one, you're missing out on a population of fans because he had that little cult following.
Yep.
But people who didn't know him or understand him thought that he was just insane. They thought he was nuts. They thought he was a wild. He scared people because he was just way faster than they could. They couldn't fathom the speed, the agility, the athleticism, the fact that he knew the business, the fact that he could move at that rate of speed. It was like their eyes and their brain were 3 steps behind him, and that's scary because it's like, holy crap, because I don't have time to prepare myself
Right.
when he comes flying out of the ring. Well, he never did any of those things, but people wanted him to, and that was the great thing about him as well. You never knew what he was going to give you, but they always wanted more. They were always kind of somewhat, I don't want to say disappointed, but they're all kind of like, oh.
Right.
You know, it was a different ending of the movie than they were expecting. They thought they had it figured out because remember back then it was like, is wrestling real? Was wrestling
Right,
fake?
it was still
Was
in that
wrestling
thing.
real or wrestling fake? And it was like, this cat here, man. And that was the thing with us independents. I'm going to tell you with our bunch. You didn't know. I told you a story about my wife and the whipping and stuff. You didn't know. You did not know because people would be going like, oh, what the world just happened here? And then, you know, unless you saw us walking out, unless you saw a stretcher, you didn't know. You didn't know if we were friends or enemies. You didn't know if we hated each other or not. You didn't know if it was real or it was work. And that was the great thing about independence. I think that's why we were so passionate about what we did and did it, because we were living up to what we were taught.
Yep.
We were taught that when those people leave, they need to know that they don't know. In this day and age, you'd have been a superstar. In this day and age, back when we remember, you had
Yep.
to be 6'8",
Yep.
380 pounds, and you had to be a brute and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was amazing because if we were born a generation later,
Yep.
we'd be in NXT somewhere, you know, rolling around. But hey, I'm cool where I'm at. I'm cool where I'm at. The other thing too is what you did back then was what's being done now. I would have been, yeah, you can't work, get out of here, because I didn't do any of that stuff. When you got, Braun Strowman superplexing the giant, Big Show off the top rope, I didn't do that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened. But
Well, I
yeah.
think there's still been a place for you because you fundamentally sound and the mind for the business. That's the thing that people you can't see that physically. That manifests over the long run.
Do they teach that anymore?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I don't see any storylines anymore. I just see, how many big spots you can get in.
Yep.
Because when we were in Guam, was it Guam or Hawaii? Whatever tour we were on, Zbyszko and Orton, Cowboy Bob, came up to me, to Rambo and I, and said, "You guys need to knock it off. You're the first match. There should be one bump, a little Shakespeare, and get out of there. Not 20-minute matches." We were taking 15, 20, 30, 40 bumps. He was jumping off the ropes. We were flying through the air. Everybody was loving it. We made the front page of the Guam Daily News for, what an exciting match it was. People were loving it. Rambo sold out of pictures the first night he was there, So it was strange time in the day because it was Shakespeare. Remember Shakespeare?
Oh, absolutely.
You told a story. Kahlua was good at that. Kahlua was good. He would wrestle maybe, 2 minutes out of a 20-minute match.
Yep.
You
have a great run in the MEWF, like what you were supposed to in the territories at that time. When it was time for you to step out, you stepped out, let the next guy come up and do their business and get themselves over. And, the ebb and flow and the different changes. You got to do that. Change is the constant in this business. When you come back, you and I almost come back at the same time. And it's like that 96, 97, 98 period leading up into early 2000. You go with Dave Casanova, and you become the good, the bad, and the ugly with Wolfman as your mascot. I come in, I'm like, Phil is running a tag with Dave. I love this. I'd like to do some work. Myself and Flex Wheeler become Black and Blue. And you guys and us, with Cornette coming in, have this nice little run back and forth, and it culminates, I think, at North Carroll in front of about 1,000 people, and we were chasing you for a year, and finally we get over on you guys and go over for the straps in front of the big house. I thought that program was so well put together in how we showed exactly what the good guys are supposed to do. That we have to chase you and earn, and by hook and crook, or by straight up means, or by cheating, you guys always had to duke. But it always left us strong, waiting to come back. Talk a little bit about that time period, what you were thinking about going on there.
Cornette, he was like one of the gods on Mount Olympus when it comes to wrestling. The guy is a genius when it comes to booking. So anytime he spoke, you listened.
Right.
And Dave and I had the opportunity to speak to him at one of the shows, when we just broke out the good, the bad, and the other. He was a hoot to talk to, number one. But he just lost his mind with the good, the bad, and the ugly because of the Wolfman. He just, that Jim Cornette laugh of his and stuff. He was just like a school kid, that had seen his, he just thought he found something new. But he's like, yeah, how he starts talking fast and stuff. And he's like, and we said, can you just watch us? Can you just watch us? And we went out and we wrestled, and boom, boom, we came back. He said, Joe, for a big man, you take an awesome bump. Dave, he was nothing but, he said, but this cat, no, this whole thing works. And he gave us some pointers in how to go about doing it. He told us we needed to be a little more, hateful. We needed to be a little more of this. So we kind of, and for Dave and I being what we thought were natural heels, that was easy for us to do. So we just kept doing that. And he said, just run the program. Just run the program. We knew what running the program meant. Not a lot of guys in this day may know that, but that was the term, run the program. So the program was, okay. And then he says, then he says, don't worry about it. He goes, put him over. He goes, put him over. He goes, don't worry about it. And we were like, Dave said, but, we want a shot down south. And, he says, don't worry about it. He goes, those times have changed. He goes, put him over. He says, you'll know when the time's right, put him over. So then the time was right when we put you over. And, at that point in time, too, remember, Dave and I were about making money,
right,
and working as much as we could. So he and I would get in the car and drive all over the joint, and I'd put him over one night, he'd put me over one night. I'd put him over one night, he'd put me over one night. We always had to do that gimmick, though, where you did the sunset flip and pulled his shorts down so everybody could see his rear end. That you had to do. That was in his contract. That was the rider. That was like the green M&Ms on most rock stars' riders. You had to do that gimmick with him. Okay, whatever. And he would always, that was his move. So he was a ladies' man. I mean, the girls loved him. The guys hated him because he was good looking. He played that Italian machismo
Heartthrob,
Casanova
yep.
heartthrob to a heartbeat. And he had that sleek build. He wasn't a muscle man, but he had that build. But you had to do that gimmick with it. So when we got together, he's like, yeah, because Dave was up for anything. If you'd had Dave wrestle on top of the Empire State Building and power slam him onto the ground, he'd have said, yeah, go for it. Because Dave was about the show. Dave was about what the people got out of it when they left. And then, like I said, I was that way too. It's like, did everybody like it? Did everybody like it? Because once again, if they liked it, they'd come back and see it.
Right.
When they saw your name on the marquee, they'd come see you because they know the last time they saw you, you gave them their money's worth. So yeah, that's how that whole thing came. Us talking to Cornette kind of put some focus on that so we could get the biggest bang for a buck out of that match with you guys. One of the things that I found absolutely to this day is the number one most awesome, fascinating, kind of ironic things in this business was, do you remember the guy at the Philly shows during ECW time wore the Panama shirt and the hat?
Yes.
Yes.
He's now a manager.
John
He's
Bailey.
now,
Yes.
he's now in the business. He was number one fan in that Philly area. Every show you went to, he was in there. Every time they had someone on TV, you saw his face. You saw the WWF stuff from the Spectrum. You saw the WWF stuff from Philadelphia
And
Arena and stuff. He was always there. Then all of a sudden, I show up at a show one day and he's there, and I'm like, "What's this? First I'm like, what's the Mark doing here?" And he's like, "He's not a Mark anymore." I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, he's a manager. He's a worker." I'm like, that was when I was like, "Yep, business has changed." We were raised in the business that everybody was a Mark if they weren't one of us.
Right.
You didn't let Marks in the locker room. You kayfabed everybody. You were workers. You took care of each other. But as soon as a Mark or a kayfabe walked in, you were in gimmick.
Yep.
In fact, the way I was brought up, you were in gimmick 24/7, which has a tendency to be a bad thing because you start to live it, you start to be it.
Right.
And it takes a while to break that because of the response you get. It's kind of an adrenaline rush when you're Max Thrasher or Ricky Blues or Axel Rotten or whomever, and people see you. It's kind of like, yeah, show's on, but sometimes the show has to stop and has to end. And I think for some guys in the business, that's a hard thing, and that's something that the business doesn't really work well at doing. It's great at giving kids opportunities, living people's dreams, but the aftermath, it's kind of, and the great thing about this is it isn't a shot on wrestling. Football's the same way, baseball's the same way, hockey's the same way. You play for 20, 30 years, you get out, and it's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't know how to do anything else.
Right.
Or the people aren't cheering anymore. Or you finally realize that you're 50 years old and your knees don't work anymore, but you would go around and do it again. In fact, in a heartbeat. If you asked me, if I was 20 again, I'd do it again. It wouldn't matter. So those are the things, like I said, it was a wild ride, and the more I think about it as the years go on, I'm happy with the way things went. And I, you know what? Everybody can go back and say, I wish this, I wish that. But I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you guys if it didn't go the way it was supposed. If it didn't go the way it did, because once again, it's something I can tell people about, and people were cool about it. I earned the respect of workers. I hopefully I gave back that respect. Hopefully I gave what I got in return, if not more. And hopefully this new generation will do the same, and we get back to some of the old day stuff.
This journey is a little bit scary because it's hitting so close to home. I appreciate, Max, you bringing up so many good stories, so many vivid memories. We're hoping that you join us again next week as we continue this stroll. Is that something you're willing to do?
I'll be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Join us again next week as we continue this retrospective look at the bounty hunter, Max Thrasher.